So we have some breaking news that a statue of Christopher Columbus has been torn down in Byrd Park in Richmond, Virginia, and thrown into a lake. And my view, in large part, is that this is a good thing. I'm a trained historian. I have a PhD in history. So I understand the value of public history, of statues, of memorials, of plaques. Nonetheless, this is a good thing. Christopher Columbus has such a horrible legacy in the United States and around the world that he merits no place to be celebrated as this founder, as this hero of American society, especially because even if you put aside all the bad things he's done, the man played no direct role in the founding of the United States of America or even colonies in what is now the territory of the United States of America, especially the continental United States of America. He just doesn't have that role. This is a man whose foundational legacy, go beyond the mythologies and lies you were told as a kid, was based upon the theft, enslavement, and mass death of millions of indigenous people. That's his legacy, without a doubt. Everything else is secondary. That is Christopher Columbus. That's who he was when he lived, and that's who he's been for the half millennium since he's been gone. That's Christopher Columbus. He is not a man to celebrate. And I know you're going to hear a few arguments that try to defend putting up statues and keeping up statues to men like Christopher Columbus. They'll say, one, that everyone was really bad in his day. Why are you judging him by modern standards? But if you look up Christopher Columbus, you'll see that his cruelty towards the people he met when he quote-unquote discovered the New World was even worse than a lot of his contemporaries. There were some like him, but there were many people that were not nearly as cruel, not nearly as disrespectful to the indigenous peoples and cultures and lands that they met. The idea that everyone was as bad as Christopher Columbus is an absolute cop-out. The other argument is that you're destroying history. But let's be real. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of statues of Christopher Columbus all over the USA and the world. This random statue in Richmond, Virginia, of all places, is not the one statue of Christopher Columbus. It sitting in a lake does not diminish his position within American history. This statue is not the last living remnant of, his legacy, and now we can no longer learn things about Christopher Columbus. If there are controversial figures who only have a few statues here and there, it may be best to take their statues down as public veneration and put them in museums. But with someone as ubiquitous as Christopher Columbus, you can easily let a couple of his statues swim in a lake. They're not that important. They're not that unique. They're not that valuable. One argument you're gonna hear, and it's going to be almost certainly disingenuous, is that this is really damaging to the Italian-American community. That Christopher Columbus was chosen as this hero of the Italian-American community at a time where they faced very real, very structural, very painful discrimination by the white Anglo-Saxon majority in the United States in the late early mid-1900s even. And Christopher Columbus was their way of asserting that from the very beginnings of the New World, Italians were playing an important role. So I get it. I still think he's an awful person to pick, and I still think it's pretty abhorrent that your hero is stepping on the backs of indigenous people all across this hemisphere, but I get it. Now, however, 100+ years later, Italian Americans have hundreds, if not thousands of people that have grown up in the United States, that have come here as immigrants or were born here as citizens, and can talk about their struggles, their accomplishments, their heroics, their contributions to the American way of life. There are other idols, very important ones, for the Italian-American community. They don't need Christopher Columbus anymore, and Christopher Columbus was never good enough to be their all-encompassing American idol. It's absurd. All of these things need to go by the wayside. These statues that are not there as public history so much as they are there to venerate awful, long-dead men should come down. In some cases, they should go into museums. In some cases, they might be left up with context added, maybe statues to their victims added. But in other cases, I have absolutely no issue with people out of righteous anger tearing down these statues and throwing them into the figurative and literal dustbins of history. I have an idea. Leave the statue where it is. That's the monument of Christopher Columbus in Richmond, Virginia, of the people rejecting him and of him going back into the waters. That's a fitting legacy if I've ever seen one.